Hi there and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing with you a very highly requested video, and it is what to do when you don't have a child that's ready to start formal lessons, but you know you want to educate with the Charlotte Mason philosophy. So this one is for you moms who have children in those early years. And here's what I would do if I went back and I found Mason when my daughter was 2 and I had 4 years until I needed to begin formal lessons. Here is what I would spend those 4 years doing. So here's what I tell everyone, because I get so many questions like this each day. I get direct messages, emails, comments. So many people want to know, what do they do while they're waiting to start formal lessons? How do they begin with a Charlotte Mason education before it's time when their child is 6? And you guys, there is so much work to be done. Do not worry. So first, you really want to give yourself a good education. So I remember when I was nursing my second, she was like 6 months old. But I had not read so many of the classics, so many. And I was an English major. That's saying something. But there were so many books that I wanted to read, and so many wonderful philosophies and novels and things that I had not yet devoured or learned myself. And so I just picked up a book, and as I was nursing at night, I had a book light that would stick on top of the book, and I would just read, and I read voraciously. I read about homeschooling. I read all the classics. I just picked up, well, not all the classics. No one can truly read all of them, right? But I picked up book after book. I visited the library often, and this allowed me to kind of give myself an education. I familiarized myself with famous artists and composers. And if you don't have time to sit and read about the artists and composers, watch a few YouTube videos if you can about those people. We all know the big names: Mozart, Beethoven, Da Vinci, Vermeer, just those ones that you know are very classic and are going to be studied when you are eventually teaching. It'd be good to familiarize yourself with them now. Listen to beautiful music. Instead of putting on Taylor Swift, you can put on Bach or Mozart's The Four Seasons. And so you can just really spend many of those days exposing your children through your own education, because if you're listening to The Four Seasons, your children are going to listen to it too. So educating yourself in all the classics is a great way to start. Also, I highly recommend that you read the book Home Education. I get so many questions from moms about how they can learn about the Charlotte Mason method without actually reading Home Education. And guys, there's no way. My videos, I really try to make them useful to you, but my words are not going to be her words. So really spend some time reading the book Home Education. She wrote 6 volumes, but you can just read the one and you'll be set, because it's based on ages 0 to 9. So if you read Home Education and that's the only volume you read, you should be golden. Volume 1, Home Education, is also chock full of useful information. So Home Education also is like a brief overview of the Charlotte Mason method, but there's also a little section in the back that talks about how she taught each subject. So that is super useful for you guys, and that way you'll have a good understanding of it way before it's time to apply it. Another thing you can do each day, this is my second tip, is read to your kids. Everyone read to your kids. If you are not in the habit of reading to your children every day, please find a way to do so. Expose your children to good books, not twaddle. And make sure that you are keeping baskets of books around the house. You have a basket of books near their bed, a basket of books near your bed, a basket of books near your couch, cozy reading areas. Really expose your children to as many books as you can in the early years. Because getting that habit of reading going, it can strengthen you and your child's relationship. It can strengthen your child's vocabulary and imagination. And if you want to homeschool, quite honestly, you better get used to reading to your kids all day. So read to your kids, that's my second tip. If you need some ideas on which picture books to get to add to your home library, or what you can reserve at the library to pick up, then I have a few videos for you. I'll link them in the description. I also have a list on my website and a list of my favorite books by season. I actually have a list I shared in my Patreon And I'll link that below too. But in my Patreon, I listed January, favorite books for January, February, favorite books for February, and I have one for every single month, and it has a list of 15 to 20 picture books. So that's a really good, useful resource. But next, number 3, if you have kids ages 0 to 5, take them outside. Spend time with them outdoors. Let them run around. Let them fall off of logs when they're crawling along them. Let them be outside during all weather. Mason recommends that children spend 4 to 6 hours outside if possible, and that's even during formal lessons. And that's hard to fit in. So get your children and yourself in the habit of being outside as much as you can, because outside is where they're going to be counting those sticks, sorting those leaves by color, and playing with their friends and running around and getting all that fine and gross motor development. That all begins out of doors. It's also a good idea to get them used to walking. There was a mother who would teach her children how to be outside and walk, and for every year they were, starting at age 3, they have to walk that many miles. So the 3-year-old had to walk 3 miles, the 4-year-old had to be able to walk 4 miles, and so on. And I feel like we're close to that. If we can't walk them, we can definitely bike that many miles. But it is important to build that habit. If you don't know how to get your kids outside more, I have a video on how to get them outside more, and I do have more videos coming out on how to spend more time outside with your kids, but there is one, and I'll link it in the description for you. My 4th tip is to just be together. You guys, if you think that you want to homeschool, if you're feeling that tug and it's been put on your heart to homeschool, you have got to be with your kids. You don't need to send them to music class when they're 6 months old like I did. You don't need to send them to ballet when they're 2.5 like I did. Your toddler does not need friends. No. Most of the attachment stage in child development happens between ages 0 to 4, and it should be to parents and siblings that your children are attaching to. Friends, they're an added bonus, and they're wonderful, but they don't need them. So focus on your family routines, your family rhythms, and your traditions. Everything else, all the other people, are just extra. And just view it that way. But spend a lot of time with your family. If you want to see how our family weekend, like a typical family weekend for us, plays out, I have a video on that. And it's one of my favorite videos because it just talks about how we love being together and the things we do. So definitely check that one out. My next tip, and this one is really, really big, and I actually have a whole series coming out on this, is to establish good habits. Habit training is simply teaching our children patiently and intentionally how to interact with and in the world around them. Mason writes about habit training in her book, Home Education. She says, "The mother who takes pains to endow her children with good habits secures for herself smooth and easy days, while she who lets their habits take care of themselves has a weary life of endless friction with the children." And it's true. If you are spending those early years before you're even beginning lessons, teaching your children the habits, those character habits, intellectual habits, those moral habits, they will have a great foundation for later on. Also, practicing the habit of attention is super, super important, because if they have a really good attention span when they're younger, they will do great with their lesson time, which is only 2.5 hours in the morning for Form 1. That's grades 1 through 3, if you're not familiar with Charlotte Mason. But all that to say, keep those habits going. I have a bunch of videos coming up about habit training. I'm actually going to be talking about it on my podcast. If you guys have not checked out my podcast, you must go listen to the first episode. It talks about why we should use a Charlotte Mason education. And I have lots more good stuff coming on that podcast. So go subscribe and listen to it. My last tip for you, if your children are between the years of 0 to 5, is to just get to know your kids. Spend time with the people that you want to teach someday. Know what makes them tick. Understand what their interests are. Get their personality. Do they shut down when they're frustrated? Do they learn better before or after a good play session? You'll want to know ahead of time how your children are with that stuff, and toddlerhood is a great time to explore that. Toddlers are honest and they don't hold back. So that's really all of my tips for you guys. If you're in that early years crowd, that 0 to 5, I really want to be a homeschool mom, but I'm not ready yet. You guys, there is so much work to be done. You can do this. Don't stress about it. And just remember to not to start formal lessons until your child is 6. So if you do want to teach things like the alphabet or counting, have them count like pebbles outside, or have them go collect 70 sticks. Not 70, maybe like 15. We could start with 15. But have them go count things outside, have them count how many birds they see or clouds in the sky, practice singing to them and singing together, expose them to wonderful music, but don't have them sit down with a workbook, because that's just not age appropriate, it's not developmentally appropriate, and it's not necessary. There's so much learning to be done just by being together. And so too, though, if you want to teach reading, I have a really good video on how to teach reading, and I'm going to link that in the description for you guys. So hopefully this didn't overwhelm you too much. My goal is to make things not overwhelming and just kind of be informative, but I know sometimes I talk so fast and it can feel overwhelming. If you have questions though, let me know. I love talking all things Charlotte Mason, especially the early years. So let me know if you need any help or have any questions in the comments. And I just want to thank you guys so much for watching and sticking around and for supporting my channel and my podcast. And I will see you guys in the next video.